Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Thursday, July the 18th, 2024. There is chaos in the Trudeau government. We have one of his cabinet ministers resigning, Seamus O'Regan of Newfoundland. A longtime Trudeau buddy, by the way. Seamus was one of Trudeau's groomsmen at his wedding years and years and years ago. And he has decided to officially pack it in, so he is resigning from cabinet as of today. And he'll play out his term as an MP until the next election, and then whatever. Some people are joking online about why this is. Why suddenly would Seamus O'Regan, I mean, he's got to be one of the most secure cabinet ministers in the entire government based upon his long-term friendship with Justin Trudeau, but maybe not. And people, like I said, are speculating online as to why. But I think I've got the answer for you, the real one. Not that it matters much, because all of these cabinet ministers may as well be wearing Trudeau masks at this stage of the game. They all represent Justin Trudeau, and by extension, they represent Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and the Bilderbergs and all of the big players who are actually pulling the strings behind the curtain. And we're going to go more into that tonight as well. There is an ex-Bilderberg member who is warning Donald Trump that he has to remove the deep state if we are to beat the globalists. If the United States is to survive, if Donald Trump is to survive, then the globalists must be defeated, and the only way to do that is to remove the intelligence apparatus, as he phrases it. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. It's very interesting. It's on a Substack, and I'm going to read it to you guys probably in about a half an hour, so make sure you're going to be here for that. There's also a 40-minute or so interview with Alex Jones. You may or may not have seen. It's on Rumble, that goes into even more specifics about what I'm going to tell you. And speaking of which, Alex Jones, I watched the interview he did last night with Candace Owens after the show was over, my show. And first of all, I want to ask you guys a question, and you can write the answer down in the comments, please. Do you think that Alex Jones is a part of the cabal, a part of the deep state, or do you think that he is with us? I happen to think he's with us. I've always thought that, even before all of this, I've always thought that Alex Jones was with us. I mean, this would be a very, very long masquerade for one person to try and pull off. 30 years worth. So, and has he been compromised? That may be the question, especially since this court settlement against him where he owes the families of those killed in, where was that, Arizona? $1 billion or something because of something he said on InfoWars, which is absolutely absurd. And because of that settlement, maybe he's compromised in some way financially and the government got him. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that guy, he just doesn't seem to be the guy who gives in, Alex Jones. So, do you guys think he's cabal, or do you think he's the real deal? Kim says, I think he's with us. Hello, Christina in Belleville. How you doing? Willie, how you doing? Tammy thinks he's with us. Joy thinks he's with us. Chuck, not sure, just like Elon Musk. Yeah, that's it. I think Elon's with us as well. I think Elon, I think he was with them for years and years and years, and then he grew up, he understood, he realized he had kids, family, all of that stuff, and he understands now exactly what the nuances of this global world order are, and he doesn't want any part of it. At the same time, he still wants to stick electrodes in our brains. He's an interesting dichotomy, that one. He's very difficult to figure out. I've got friends that say Elon is so on the other side, and this whole X thing has just been a ruse to fool you guys into thinking that you've got free speech when you don't. I don't know. It's interesting to speculate on all of this. Greg, hello in Kingston. Bill, I don't know the whole story. I'd have to know more about the situation. Well, you're going to find out more about the situation tonight, Bill, because this interview that Alex Jones did with Candace Owens, we're going to play that in the extension tonight for all access pass holders at shadowdavis.com. If you want to watch the whole thing on your own, feel free. You can find it pretty much anywhere They stream video, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, all of the biggies. That interview is on there. It's about an hour long. But I would like to watch it with you guys tonight. I watched it on my own last night, and it sent shivers down my spine. We have these moments, and I'm sure you guys are the same way, over the past 4 years or 5 years or however long it's been now, where we go, oh my God, we get a certain piece of information and go, what? It just throws you for a complete loop. And in the past month, I have to say that that's happened to me a couple or 3 times at the very least. Whereas before, I mean, there was a big, long drought. It didn't happen. And now it's like, vroom, vroom, vroom. All of these things are coming at us, and we have to adapt, and we have to continue forming the opinion based on the information that comes to us. And it's coming at a breakneck speed in these last few days, especially ever since the Trump assassination, which, by the way, there may be a second shooter on now standing on that water tower, and I've got some video to play for you guys in a little while as well. So thank you for being here tonight, all of you. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or X, go ahead and share this. Share this out as much as you can. Obviously, like it, give us a thumbs up. And if you're on Rumble, same thing. Thumbs up and share it by hitting the share button beneath the screen. That's going to highlight the URL above the screen. From there, you can go ahead and copy and paste to your favorite location. All right, so Rumble, X, where else are we? YouTube, Facebook. You guys, let's get this out there to as many people as we possibly can. The shadow, oh, by the way, the Trudeau government, like I said, is in complete disarray, total shambles, and Trudeau made an announcement today regarding the flooding that happened in Toronto. Of course, it has to do with climate change, and we're going to get to that in just a second also. And Marco Mendicino, the former Minister of Justice, I think? Not Minister of Justice, he's the Minister of Public Safety. Right, during the Freedom Convoy especially. What a liar this guy is. Now he's demanding safe spaces, safe zones for all elected officials, because we're in danger. If you don't lie, if you don't consistently lie and cheat and steal and scandal after scandal after scandal, I think you're probably going to be in pretty good shape as an elected official in this country. Call me crazy, Marco. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The toothpaste, no fluoride, zero, none, nada, zilch. Multiple flavors. It comes in cinnamon, it comes in spearmint, it comes in bubbleberry. It's naturally whitening. It helps keep your teeth clean with triple action nano silver. The Silverceutical technology you hear me talking about all the time. Silverceuticals is made from only the highest quality ingredients. And this unique toothpaste is kid safe and uses powerful natural ingredients as well. Triple action nano silver helps to clean your teeth and promotes healthy teeth and gums. And then above ground, mined coral calcium helps to scrub and remineralize your teeth. Again, the kids are going to want to brush their teeth 12 times a day if you don't keep this away from them. Again, it comes in cinnamon, spearmint, and bubbleberry. The toothpaste, one of the amazing products available here at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. You can find a retail location near you. There are 33 scattered all across the country by hitting the Retail Locations tab in the upper right corner of the website. And if you would like to become a retailer of these awesome products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the Contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. All right, first thing, the RNC continues in Milwaukee tonight. Donald Trump is going to hit the stage at 9 o'clock Central Time. That means probably about 9:20 or so. Maybe even a little bit later. He's notoriously late for his speeches. I guess, especially after the assassination attempt on Saturday, he'd rightfully be late as the security concerns are addressed. Hulk Hogan is going to speak before Trump tonight at the RNC. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's just because of their long-term friendship. Look at this picture going back to 1985. There's a young Donald Trump with a young Hulk Hogan. So Hulk, the Hulkster, is speaking at the RNC tonight. Also in attendance will be Vince McMahon's wife, Vince McMahon of the World Wrestling Federation, or Entertainment, I guess it's called now, and Dana White of UFC is going to be there as well. Remember I was talking to you the other day about these guys and how they may have just gotten together behind closed doors and thought, how can we simulate an assassination attempt to give you a complete and total upper hand at winning this election? Again, that is still speculation on my part, although I will admit my opinion has been kind of morphing around these past couple of days. But we're not going to know until we see actual evidence that a bullet hit Donald Trump in the ear. At least I won't. I want to, because he's been walking around with that massive bandage. We still haven't seen the ear. You think the ear would be mangled or have a bullet hole in it or something, and we haven't seen the ear. I want to see the ear. I want to see it close up. That's all I'm asking for. And guys, don't get me wrong. I want to believe that this is real. Because if it is, the deep state, the globalists, they are in horrible shape. I think they're in horrible shape anyway. Like I said at the end of the show last night, no matter what this past weekend was, it's a good thing for our side, a very good thing for our side. All right, let's start with the Canadian news first. Not much of it lately, but today there was a smattering of Canadian news, and here is Justin Trudeau talking in Toronto about the flooding that occurred earlier this morning.
The city workers who are there, the hydro workers who continue to work to try and reestablish power for those who lost it. It was a significant event, and I want you to know that we're all there to work together to make sure that not just people get supported through this, but that this happens more and more infrequently in the coming years. The reality is, though, that with climate change, there are going to be more extreme weather events. So we need to continue to step up in our fight against climate change. But we also need to
all right, that's all we need to see. Should be a drinking game. Whatever Trudeau says, climate change, you take a sip. And again, we'd all be hammered probably in the first 10 minutes, so that might not be such a good idea. From the National Post today, Trudeau loyalist Seamus O'Regan quitting cabinet, won't run in the next election. O'Regan will leave his position for family reasons, said one Liberal source, but will remain as an MP until the next federal election, whenever that happens to be. So, on X today, I find this amusing. This is really funny. Anti-Taxer posted this. This is the moment when Seamus O'Regan decided to quit the Liberals. Remember this rant? This completely unhinged rant a couple of weeks ago?
And the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Give up the future of the planet. Right? Don't worry, kids, about climate change. Don't worry about taking action on the planet. Enjoy your 10 hours.
And look at the look on O'Regan's face as, is that Mark Miller? I forget this guy's name. Mark Miller. Yeah, it's Mark Miller. He's the health minister. Look at him ranting and raving and losing his mind here.
And the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Enjoy your 10 hours in the car and let the planet burn.
Oh, enjoy the 10 hours in the car, kids, and let the planet burn. That's what Pierre Poilievre wants. They're crazy. They've lost all sense of reality. We'll get more into that in a different way in just a second with former Minister of Public Safety Marco Mendicino. But I think this is the real reason that Seamus O'Regan is leaving. In Newfoundland, it is traditional Liberal territory. From what I understand, Newfoundlanders have got a very long-standing grudge against Conservatives of all kinds, provincial, federal, just on a human level. You Conservative, bye. Yeah, get out. Well, look at this. This is Seamus O'Regan's writing, Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. And in this writing, it is 96% likely that the Conservatives will win the seat. Right now, 50% of people polled in that riding, Terra Nova, the Peninsulas, will vote Conservative in the next federal election. Well, only 37%. And I understand that 37% still sounds like a lot. How can 37% of people anywhere in this country want to vote Liberal still? I understand that as well. It doesn't make any sense to me. The NDP, 9%. So if you put the two of them together, it's still only 46%. The Conservatives beat them both. That's how bad it is for the Liberals that long-standing Liberal strongholds will be falling to the Conservative Party in the next federal election, whether it's in October of 2025 or whether it's in October of 2024. Whenever it is, it doesn't matter. And I believe, as time goes on, things are only going to get worse for the Liberal Party of Canada, no matter who's running the show. Michelle Rumpelgarner put up a pretty interesting X thread today. We're going to get to that in just a second. It regards Mark Carney, who people have been talking about as the next possible leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. So this story comes from TNC.News, True North. Marco Mendicino demands protective zones to shield MPs from harassment. What kind of protective zones is he talking about? Is he talking about where they have a bubble, like a plexiglass cage around them, and they have to pick it up, and they have little leg holes at the bottom, like Fred Flintstone's car, where they have to pick it up and take it with them wherever they go? I don't understand. Where people cannot walk? I don't know. This is a free country so far. You can't just tell people they can't walk on a public sidewalk, even if you happen to be standing on it, Marco. But let's go ahead and read the story, at least a little bit of it, until I get sick of it. And who knows, I might be able to last till the end. A Liberal MP wants to put jail time on the table. Jail time for people who harass members of Parliament and their staff. Former Liberal Cabinet Minister Marco Mendicino is calling on the government to implement protective zones to shield MPs from harassment. The request comes as harassment against parliamentarians rose by almost 800% in 5 years. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that people are harassing elected officials in this country? Probably mostly Liberals and NDP. Marco says on his X account, political violence is unacceptable, and I would tend to agree with that. But threats to MPs have gone up 800% the last 5 years. We need to do more to protect MPs, their families, and their staff. If we don't, there will be more political violence, and it will be harder to attract and keep good people in politics. That I happen to agree with. But, if you act honorably as a politician representing the people who voted you into power, you shouldn't have a problem out there. I understand. You know, the environment, the society, it's politically charged these days. People going off on a hair trigger. And we'll show you video of that later on in the show tonight also. Mendicino made the comments in an interview with the Canadian Press. He said, we have to take parliamentary security more seriously. We need, as Canadians, to open our eyes and recognize that political violence is not something that just occurs somewhere else, but that it's happening here in our own communities. Well, in Canada, it doesn't really happen so often, does it? Not really. I mean, there might be threats, and I don't know. I've never actually seen a threat. They never show us. I mean, all you have to do is redact the threatener's name and put it online. Okay, here's an actual threat. Or is it just lies, more lies being told to us by the Liberal Party? I mean, Pierre Poilievre had to be asked about it the other day in an interview he gave with a talk radio show host in Toronto on a Chorus radio station. And Chorus, it looks like Chorus is going under. They are laying people off left, right, and center now. From Global News, local radio, it's an embarrassment. It looks like they're going to go bankrupt. Their stock is at 10 cents a share. It's crazy. Anyway, Mendicino says that while he believes people have the right to express their disagreement to their elected officials, there are limits. He says we're seeing more threats, more intimidation, more harassment, which can lead to harm both online and in the community. Well, again, online harm. Hey, man, you've got the Online Harms Act, don't you? You can prosecute that. You know what? You've always been able to prosecute online threats. Because a threat in this country, whether online, in person, on the telephone, whatever, is still illegal. And that's the ridiculousness of the Online Harms Act in a nutshell right there. Mendicino is asking for anti-harassment buffer zones of 50. And so you're going to have a guy with a rangefinder following you around, Marco, and saying, hey, that guy's in the zone. That's outrageous. But these zones, he says, between 50 and 100 meters around the constituency offices of MPs to protect them and their staff. Oh, just around their offices. Not around the House of Commons, not anywhere you happen to be. Because I'm sure that people will only try to cause you harm when you're in your office. Typical Liberal thinking. He noted that such zones should come with strict penalties for violators, like harsher criminal penalties and jail time. Mendicino, who previously served as public safety minister, said he always found the RCMP were prepared to step up. Well, yeah, look what they did at the Freedom Convoy. At his behest, by the way. Well, Trudeau's behest, but he was the minister that had to make it happen. And he lied. We're going to show you the lies in just a second. Similar anti-harassment bubble zones have already been implemented around abortion clinics, schools, drag queen story hours, and places of worship. And by the way, I believe those bubble zones to be unconstitutional, but nobody has challenged it yet. So the court has not made a ruling. See, that's the problem in this country. These politicians at every level continue to pass laws and bylaws that are unconstitutional, but until somebody challenges it, makes a constitutional challenge, these laws remain in place, whereas it should be the other way around. Before they're allowed to pass one of these types of laws, it needs to get through a constitutional challenge, don't you think? It's like you wake up one morning and your neighbor has moved his fence 5 feet onto your property, and you say, hey, wait a minute, man. Like, that's not where the property line is. Sorry, man, you want to challenge me on it? And then it takes 3 or 4 years in court before you can finally get him to move his fence back to his side of the property. It's absolutely absurd. Public Minister of Safety, Marco Mendicino, lied about invoking the Emergencies Act, as we now know. And here's video evidence of that.
Mr. Speaker, it's disturbing that Conservatives needed to ask the police to find out that the minister's statement claiming that police recommended the government invoke the Emergencies Act was in fact false. No such recommendations were made by police. The deputy minister tried to explain the minister's claims, saying he was misunderstood. Why did the minister repeatedly fail to give Parliament accurate information, or was he just hoping he wouldn't get caught?
Good point. Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, let me quote from the testimony of Commissioner Brenda Lucki of the RCMP in front of the committee that honourable colleague is a member of. She said, and I quote, when they did come up with the measures, referring to the government, they came to us to say, would these measures be useful? Then when they were revoking, of course, they came to us and said, are you in a position that you no longer need the additional authorities? It was a consultation. That's precisely what we've said all along. It was the responsible thing to do to invoke the Emergencies Act. And if you want to be a government, you got to know how to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That's what we did.
The honourable member for Sturgeon, Rivera Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, the minister's story keeps changing. Invoking the Emergencies Act sets a precedent for our country's history. There is no room for this government to mislead, equivocate, or to be misunderstood. Parliament was led to believe by the Minister of Public Safety that the police asked the government to invoke the Emergencies Act. But now we know that is false. Will the minister show some humility and apologize to Canadians for his inaccurate statements?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you would think that that colleague, that honourable member of this chamber would have the humility to recognize the words that I just said were not from the government, but from the RCMP commissioner in front of the committee, which he was privy to, which he heard. He heard those words. The commissioner said that the government consulted, which is exactly what we've said all along. We sought the advice of law enforcement on the powers that they needed to restore public safety, Mr. Speaker.
There he is, lying on top of another lie, on top of another lie, without any kind of humility whatsoever. Marco, it's no mystery why people don't like you, and maybe you are getting threats. It's because of your conduct. It's because of your lies. But here's more about that.
The Minister of Public Safety told Canadians that he relied on the advice of law enforcement to implement the Emergencies Act. That was false. He told Canadians that the Beijing-run police stations in our country were closed, and that was false. And then he told Canadians that he didn't know about a child rapist and murderer, Paul Bernardo's transfer out of a maximum security prison. He stood in front of the victims' families and acted shocked. He knew for 3 months, and now he's throwing his staff under the bus. So which staff member did he fire?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, you're absolutely right. I stood with the families of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey because I have great care for them, as do all Canadians. That's why I called the Commissioner to express my concerns. That's why she's conducting a review of the decision. That's why I'm issuing new instructions to the CSC. The honourable colleague refers to the Emergencies Act. I will always defend this government's decision to invoke that act. While we were working around the clock to restore public safety, what were the Conservatives doing? What was the leader of the Conservative Party doing? He was serving up Timmies, Mr. Speaker. In this side of the House, we will always defend law and order.
Well, member for Thornhill.
If he claims he doesn't read emails, if he claims he doesn't get briefed by staff, if he claims he doesn't get briefed by his officials, if he claims he doesn't tell the Prime Minister anything, what does he actually do here? He told the families of Paul Bernardo's victims that he had no knowledge of the transfer. He pretended that he had no idea. He re-victimized the families of the victims, and he doesn't have the trust of Canadians. His own.
All right, so I'm seeing a couple of comments here from people saying, you know how old those videos are. I say, of course, they're old. That's the point. He's no longer a cabinet minister because he was such a burden and anchor to Justin Trudeau. At least that's what Trudeau thought. Trudeau's the actual anchor. But this happened last year during the cabinet shuffle where Marco Mendicino was dropped as the Minister of Public Safety. But he's the one in the news today talking about having 50 to 100 meter buffer zones around elected officials, which is an absolutely ludicrous suggestion with harsh criminal penalties should somebody say something. Like maybe in an airport, if you say bomb in an airport, oh my God, come with us, sir. That's exactly what he's going for. And this guy, I just wanted to illustrate to you guys exactly how much of a liar he has been over his tenure as an MP for the Liberal Party and a cabinet minister in the government of Canada. He is an absolute embarrassment, and he is the last one to be or should be asking for this kind of security measure. Now, getting back to my story about Pierre Poilievre, do you ever hear Poilievre talking about this at all? I need more security. I need more security. I mean, there's a guy who probably gets threats all the time. I only saw, and I mentioned this just a few minutes ago, and I didn't finish the story, so let me finish it now. He was doing this interview with a talk radio host in Toronto, and the talk radio host asked Poilievre straight out, do you require security? And are you worried about yourself being harmed in any way at a public event? And Poilievre said, I'm more worried about my family, but yes, I do receive death threats quite often. We don't know if they're real or if they're imagined or if it's some angry constituent or some member of Antifa or whatever. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember exactly what Poilievre said. But ultimately, he didn't make a big deal of it, right? He said, we've asked the PMO for additional security, which they have provided, to their credit. And so Poilievre, well, maybe a little bit concerned about being approached by some wackadoodle in the streets one day, does not seem to be overly concerned about it, unlike Marco Mendicino. And probably the reason for that is because Poilievre comes out and gives us the straight goods. At least that's how it appears to me. He comes out and says what he thinks. Now, he doesn't say everything I want him to say on a personal, political level. He doesn't address everything I want him to address. But I think that moving forward for this country, Pierre Poilievre is the only choice. Because Maxime Bernier, I'm sorry guys, does not have a chance at even getting one seat in the House of Commons. So, and Michelle Rempel-Garner, don't know about her. Wayne Peters thinks that Michelle is sketchy. I think she's a little bit sketchy. Her involvement with the World Economic Forum is still up in the air. We don't know. I don't believe I've ever heard her answer a question about her involvement with that organization. But she put up an interesting post on X today because there's been a lot of talk in these last few days about Mark Carney being approached by Justin Trudeau to take over as the Minister of Finance and then firing Chrystia Freeland from that position. Trudeau thinks that by shaking up his cabinet again this summer, like he did last summer, it's going to create some kind of a shift in polling. It's not. Trudeau is the only one that people are focused on in this country, and they do not like him. At least 70% of people, according to the last poll I saw from Abacus, do not like him. So here's what Rempel-Garner said today. Trudeau neatly effed Mark Carney's political ambitions with this leak. Here's why. So it's a thread. We're going to go through. Trudeau holds meeting with Mark Carney to join government, sources say. All right, so let's get to the next part. First, the leak to the Globe and Mail was purposeful. Came from the Prime Minister's office. It put this information out into the public to force Mark Carney's hand. Carney has been indelicately circling Trudeau's limping carcass of a political career for weeks. To not be further gelded into in front of his caucus, Trudeau had to find a way to make Carney stop. This leak is that way because, number one, if Carney doesn't run in the by-election, he looks like he won't carry water for a hurting team, hardly a way to start a leadership bid. And two, if he runs and loses, he's done. Or three, if he does run and wins, he has to take on water for Trudeau in his back bench. Can you imagine the illustrious Mark Carney sitting in the back row with the backbench plebes? I can't. He'd also be forced to vote for Trudeau's disastrous bills, clap in the shot in question period, meaning like you're in the shot, right? You're in that moment that's being videoed. You're standing behind Trudeau going, yes, absolutely, clapping in the shot. Walk to and from his office in the basement of the Confederation building with no driver, which is below globalist Mark Carney. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, for goodness sakes. Now he's a lowly backbencher? I don't think so. Hardly the royal box at Wimbledon, she says. So I predict that Carney will back off. There is no way he's going to run in a Quebec by-election. Also, it would force his hand to the jittery Liberal Quebec caucus. And thus, the death of Mark Carney's ambitions will be Trudeau's chest-thumping offering to his caucus. Unfortunately, all this BS will not solve any of the real problems Canadians are facing. The Liberals deserve each other and to lose. I think that's a very well thought out post by Michelle Rempel-Garner. Now, the guys from V4F, when this was first announced a few days ago, said, we called it, we called it. DEI hire, DEI hire. By the way, there's a Disney movie coming out this fall, animated, DEI hire. All about that Secret Service agent at the Trump assassination who could not, for the life of her, holster her weapon. Anyway, from the Canadian Independent, watch. Canada's new Chief of Defence Staff, Jenny Carnigan, who was officially appointed to the position today, says she needs all the real mainstream media journalists in Canada to help her combat disinformation. Watch this.
You've been the target of disinformation campaigns that General Eyre mentioned. How much of that do you expect to continue in terms of trying to sway Canadians' opinions or undermine our institutions?
Well, I can expect. I think we should be expecting some of that, and I think we will need all of your help, you out there, the real journalists, to counter that.
You've been the target of disinformation campaigns that General Eyre mentioned. How much of that do you expect to continue in terms of trying to sway Canadians' opinions or undermine our institutions?
Well, I can expect. I think we should be expecting some of that, and I think we will need all of your help, you out there, the real journalists, to counter that.
You've been the target.
All right, twice is enough. So we're going to get to this Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in just a second, guys. They are all across this country scaring people. I have a mention here in all caps. So from Mary says, Shadow, why won't you pound we want those names? Are you talking about the names of the elected officials who may be involved with Chinese or Indian or Iranian infiltration into our government? Well, I will pound, absolutely, Mary. I'm absolutely all about that. But the problem is that right now, Parliament is not in session. And so to pound right now would be a fruitless attempt at trying to get anything out of these people. So there's a time and a place. And the timing of this obviously was set up by the Liberals. You can't really say that. The timing of this was bad because we knew that Parliament was going to be standing for the summer. And so you were kind of hoping that these names would be published before that happened. And I believe the Conservative Party didn't do enough to get those names out there. And you may watch committees from time to time. And the problem with committees are that these Liberal and NDP members who sit on these committees are constantly filibustering, interrupting, point of order, and it is so frustrating for any actual real work to be done. And basically what the Liberals and the NDP are doing in these committees is they are trying to cover up. They're trying to cover up all of the misdeeds that they've been doing. And so it seems like, at least at this stage of the game, as long as the NDP continues to side with the Liberal government in Parliament and in committee and everywhere else, we're not going to get any answers. And this is one of the other reasons I continue to say we need a new Conservative government in there so that we can get answers. I believe that Poilievre is going to want to get answers. He's going to want to know exactly, he's going to want to uncover all of these scandals. He's going to take great pleasure in doing so. But you got to remember that even if Poilievre wins the next government, and he probably will, that parliamentary privilege from the previous government is still held by the Prime Minister and that previous government. He cannot get the answers he needs unless a court decides, and this would probably have to go all the way to the Supreme Court, unless the Supreme Court decides that the government must turn over those documents. I'm getting news from some of my contacts in Washington right now, and they are telling me it looks like Joe Biden will be stepping down as early as Sunday. Whoa. This is an incredible story. Again, we can't tell you this for sure, but we're hearing that it looks like Joe Biden will be stepping down as early as Sunday. He will not endorse Kamala Harris to be on top of the ticket. We're hearing he will endorse Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Ooh. I don't think Trump has to worry about losing an election to Gavin Newsom. So anyway, that's only what I'm hearing. I cannot verify or guarantee that any of that is true. All right, let's get back to this. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRCG, the most powerful branch of the Iranian armed forces, independent of Iran's regular army, and accountable only to the office of the supreme leader. It was established by Ruhollah Khomeini, Iran's first leader in 1979 through 1989, and strengthened under the presidency of Ali Khamenei from 81 to 89 during the Iran-Iraq War. So what do they have? They've got an Air Force, they've got a Navy, they've got an Army, and they've got an intelligence wing, which doesn't necessarily only operate within the boundaries of Iran. We know that there are at least 70 operatives of the IRCG or GC operating in Canada. We know that. Poilievre has said that. Canadian intelligence, CSIS, has said that publicly, that the Iran secret police are operating within Canada. I don't know what they're doing, but they're here and they're doing something. So here's a breaking story from Daniel Boardman of the National Telegraph. And Daniel says that the Shia Jihadi March in Toronto linked to the IRGC. Salman Sima is a journalist, I believe, originally from Iran, and I were assaulted several times in front of members of the Toronto Police Service. Salman was peacefully holding a sign that said, "Fight for freedom in Iran," and I was peaceful while covering it as a journalist. You can see them attack Salman here, and at the end of the video, violent extremists hit me and grabbed my phone, which ended the video. Thank you, Salman, for getting my phone back. Jihadists in Canada felt fully confident to break the law because they know Toronto police will not hold them accountable. Let's watch this minute-long video.
Who are you? I'm Simon Sino. Ask police officer to come. Who are you? Who are you? a jihadi? I am not allowed to defend you. Are not allowed because you are supporting jihad. I am here because I'm supporting freedom.
Friends, we have got jihadists or Iranian Secret Service or both operating within the borders of our country. It's appalling. And something needs to be done about it. Now, Pierre Poilievre has said these people will be apprehended and removed from our country the second he becomes the prime minister. I want you to understand something here. And I've repeated this before, and I'm going to say it again. We can't put all our faith in one person. All right? But I believe that Pierre Poilievre gives us the best chance to develop our own systems moving forward, more runway. Trudeau, going the way he's going, would have us as the first post-nation state in the world probably by the end of next year. I also believe that in the past week there has been some serious damage done to the globalist plan. And I'm going to go more into that in just a second. Here is video from Alex Jones that was taken earlier today at the RNC. It's Donald Trump speaking to a sub-PAC, and he's going to, like I said, he's going to be speaking live tonight at about 9 o'clock Central Time. But let's watch what happened earlier.
Take a look at what happened.
Fight, fight, fight. This is the real world. This is history happening in front of your eyes. This is the New World Order battling in its coup against America to stay in control and to stay in power. And we need to be praying for President Trump. Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne yesterday was really smart, not just spiritually, but politically. He said, look, Trump has got to call on Christ. Trump has got to say this is a battle between good versus evil. Everybody else in these foxholes has done it. Tucker Carlson, myself, even Joe Rogan says he now believes in Jesus. We need Jesus. I mean, this is a real spiritual battle. The devil's taking the mask off. And Trump, they'll play it later after I leave. The clip's up on X. Or hell, we may just play it now if you guys don't have it. I think I sent it. It's I don't know if it's on the list, but I reposted it this morning on X. Last night, he went off to a subgroup at the RNC. And maybe he'll say it in his main speech tonight. He certainly should. And he said, this has really changed me. I've always known, God's there and in control, but this has really changed me, and I'm very thankful to God. I think God, protected me. And he's, went on to thank God. That is absolutely essential. It's not number one. It's everything, because I've experienced it myself. God is real. God is great. We're up against princes and principalities and the forces of evil here, ladies and gentlemen. And it's time to stop letting the Democrats and the corporate media dictate things and tell us who to associate with and what to say. And they take good, wholesome things we say and say they're evil and say they're bad. Instead of running from that, we need to run towards it, like J.D. Vance has done, defending me when he was running for Senate, defending me when he was a senator, defending me just recently, saying Alex Jones is way more credible than the corporate media. It's not about me getting attention. It's about they picked me to demonize, to make everybody try to deny me and shun me, which didn't work, because they saw me as the archetypal populist patriot who had their number and knew how to beat them. And they tried to get me off the air almost 6 weeks ago with a desperate Justice Department operation that a federal judge blocked without even an order, because I knew this was coming. And just like I told you, they're going to blame Iran for the assassination. They tried that days after I told you that. And
okay, so 1 second here. Just so you are aware, Alex Jones did predict a year ago that the deep state was going to try and assassinate Donald Trump. A year ago. Okay, let's continue.
Just like I told you, I believe Biden would be gone by the 21st. We have the clips, and I still think that number is going to hold And yesterday, he cancels his engagements. He cancels going out. Then he says, I'm sick. And then he says, I have COVID. And if I have an illness, I may drop out of the race. They're already segueing that to do it. So at every level, they rigged the primary for him. They stole the election from Trump. They tried to take Trump off the ballot. Now Biden won't do what they're telling him, so they want to remove him because he's such an embarrassment. They are completely running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Total confusion has been sown into the enemy camp by God Almighty. So I thank God and give God all the glory for this. And we have to have maximum courage to just tell the truth. And I said it Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I said, we've got to have Congress people. We've got to have military experts. They've got to come out and say, look, this was an inside job, a total stand down, and not let the gaslighting work. And now all the experts agree that the advanced team, the current team, the shooter wandering around for hours inside the fairgrounds, wandering around with a rangefinder, looking up at the roof, and then no Secret Service on that main roof, the closest to Trump. And then they let him climb up there for 26 minutes and then take his shots before they killed him. You can see the snipers on the radio, the counter snipers, saying, we got him, we got him. I mean, you have to mime it. You can see it. They've got him. They're on the radios. They're freaking out. Police and people are saying, gun, shooter, man on roof. They're all running away. And then those in command told them to stand down. Oh, it's a sloped roof and all this other crap that they've told you is not working. The people are seeing through it. And now we have this major Democrat investment firm making the biggest short or biggest, I believe, naked short put in their history on Donald Trump's Truth Social stock, betting that it was going to go down massively, and filing with the federal body, Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. They were doing this. Normally, a put that big by anybody, you get a visit from the SEC. And now they're like, oh, it's just an accident we did that. We just accidentally filed with the agency and on the stock sites and everywhere that we did this. We've now withdrawn that. Yeah, because Donald Trump isn't dead, and now that bet didn't work. I don't know where Truth Social, it's like Donald Trump Digital Media, I forget the exact name. I don't know where that is right now, but we've got Edward Dowd coming up.
It looks like Alex is suffering from some kind of an allergy attack here, or maybe he's got a cold or a cough or something. But anyway, you notice that everything he says, he always brings the receipts. So what did happen this past weekend? We're going to delve into that in just a little bit. At least what are the new developments that we heard about in the last day or two. But in the meantime, as we stay with InfoWars and with Alex Jones and Forbidden News, and as we go deeper, and we're going to play you the entire video tonight of Alex's interview with Candace Owens. And some of you have asked me, can you get Alex Jones on your show? Yeah, I can ask. It never hurts to ask. So, yeah, I will definitely make that request, and we'll see what happens. Anyhow, Bilderberg expert advises Trump he must destroy the intelligence apparatus. He needed to subjugate the CEI. He didn't do that. We saw what happened this past weekend. Guys, with everything we're seeing, I am starting to believe that this was a real attempt, however shoddy. It was a real attempt on the life of Donald Trump this past weekend, as new information tends to leak in. What we're seeing is a horrible, bad, horribly planned attempt to kill Donald Trump in front of the world. Things are starting to add up here. CNN, MSNBC had their cameras live during Trump's address over the weekend. They never, and they haven't for years, covered any of Donald Trump's speeches or rallies live, but they were this past weekend. Why? Why? That's just one thing of many that are starting to happen. But again, I'm not completely convinced. I'm just looking at all of the evidence that comes in piece by piece by piece and forming an opinion. Like I said, I haven't got anything carved in stone yet. I'm still thinking on this because it's not easy to put together. This whole thing has never been easy to put together, but that interview that Alex Jones gave with Candace Owens does put a lot of things together, things that make absolute sense, and we're going to play that in its entirety during the extension tonight for all access members at shadowdavis.com. So let's go ahead and read this Substack here. Daniel Estulin joins Alex Jones live. This is an interview that Jones did to reveal the war raging between the U.S. intelligence deep state and President Donald Trump. Daniel offers his analysis as a 24-year Russian military counterintelligence veteran. And from his point of view, recent events in the U.S. appear to be propelling the world toward the multipolar world order championed by Vladimir Putin, not the one world order championed by Bilderbergs and the World Economic Forum and the IMF, State Street and BlackRock. The alternative being the one world order Atlanticists. Now, this guy, Daniel Estulin, calls them the Atlanticists, which is interesting. Their order is genocide and you will eat the bugs, right? The debt that's been deliberately run up by the U.S. government is not repayable. Therefore, the continued existence of the United States as we know it hangs in the balance. The liberal banking elite, also known as the Atlanticists, need to trigger a force majeure in order to legally write off that debt. Now, force majeure is an act of God. That's actually a legal principle that's followed worldwide. Force majeure equals act of God. And that's what the globalists, the Atlanticists, need right now. So, World War III and a concomitant civil war in the U.S. that splits the country into 2 or even 3 or 4, however many necessary, to then impose the CBDC enslavement system controlled by the same Atlanticists via the Bank for International Settlements, which is at the top of the pyramid. I've displayed that to you guys before, the Bank of International Settlements. Daniel explains there are 2 models before us: the global financiers who are willing to destroy the United States in order to survive, versus Donald Trump, also known as MAGA, who wants to save America. Daniel asks, what does Make America Great Again mean? It means the survival of the United States at the expense of these global liberal banking financiers. And this is exactly what Trump and this part of the globalist establishment wing behind him are trying to do. You're trying to avoid the destruction of the United States. But the people who own the world money, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, they're globalists. They're not American citizens. You and I, he's talking to Alex Jones, have talked about this before. There may have been American passports, but that's only because that's where the money is. They're globalists, and they're willing to destroy the United States. Now, why? A lot of people don't understand. Why would someone like David Rockefeller, who allegedly makes all of his money in America, why would he want to destroy the United States? Because they already own almost everything on planet Earth that interests them. And what they own no longer brings them an increase in their wealth. It only increases the cost because there's nowhere else to expand, because we've reached the limits of growth within this current economic model, which is Bretton Woods. Could it be they've become so rich that they need new worlds to conquer? And that is the impetus behind all of this. They're bored. In other words, Daniel says the only way the Atlanticist elite can continue to increase their wealth is by impoverishing or eliminating and stealing the resources of those beneath them on the social ladder. In order for globalist minions to survive and succeed, they must be in complete lockstep with the liberal banking cartel's goals to collapse and dismantle the United States and to asset strip everything like national parks. This is the treason being committed daily by people like Alejandro Mayorkas and countless other minions of the Biden administration, including members of the CIA-controlled mainstream media. Daniel says the Western intelligence agencies are the main instruments driving this Atlanticist financial international policy, which is why Trump advocates for the abolition of the CIA, the FBI, etc. And needless to say, they're not going to forgive him for it. Look what happened to JFK in 1963. He started talking about getting rid of the CIA. That didn't go over so well, did it? RFK, same thing. A few years later, boom, same result. Daniel says the 2024 elections are essentially a race between a faction in the United States establishment committed to maintaining a one-world global empire at the cost of destroying the United States, and a faction committed to a robust, re-industrialized, more self-sufficient United States of America that by definition would be part of a multipolar world order. Daniel continues, and the question before us is whether the United States administration can re-engineer the federal budget to a positive return on investment. If it does not succeed, we're entering a long, harsh financial squeeze, like we've all thought of in the last few years. Worse, if tinkering with the U.S. Constitution occurs and or privatization takes over, I think we're looking at some serious trouble ahead. Game's not over yet. The everyday people of America are being crushed by the same globalists who have been immiserating countries like Russia for centuries. This is why the globalists fear any alliance between our peoples, Russia and the United States, and why they attempt to smear Westerners who refuse to dehumanize Russians as Russian agents or Putin's puppets. Daniel goes on to say that the U.S. needs to have a civil war in order to resolve the conflicts between the woke left, who have been brainwashed to hate America, versus the more conservative patriots who want to save their country. Alex says, hey, I disagree with him, that a civil war is necessary to accomplish this. Should Trump manage to get back into the White House, there will be mass layoffs of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of U.S. government bureaucrats. But before that can happen, we may see the deep state assassinate Joe Biden, since he's no longer of use to them. And the false flag that they may use, indeed, may become the flashpoint that triggers the civil war that Daniel thinks we need. What do you think Project 2025 is all about anyway? Why are the Marxists so adamant that Project 2025 can never, ever be implemented, ever, in the United States? Ultimately, Project 2025, which is conceived of by the leading conservative minds in the United States, is a plan to wipe out the deep state, including the alphabets. Gone. So that possibly Donald Trump can reform them in some way that's controllable. Final story tonight before we hit shadowdavis.com for the extension. And they're still doing it. Big tech and left-wing corporate media still doing it. Google burying the Trump campaign website even in the thick of the RNC, the Republican National Convention. As the convention kicked off Monday, Google is continuing to bury former President Donald Trump's campaign website while propping up his opponents. MRC is Media Research Co. Their researchers searched Google using a clean environment without the influence of prior search history and tracking cookies, and found the search giant completely eliminated Donald Trump's website from the top 100 search results while pushing President Joe Biden's campaign website up to the #1 spot. Researchers conducted 3 separate searches for the top 3 candidates' names along with the words presidential race 2024, while the results for Trump brought up seemingly endless 2024 election updates, including news articles, polls, and commentaries. The search engine did not display the candidate's campaign website. Google, however, had no issues displaying the campaign website of Joe Biden as the first result in an equivalent search. Independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s website appeared as the 4th result in a similar search. And remember that everything that's going on in the United States right now, it's worse, right now at least, in our country. If Donald Trump wins the presidency of the United States of America, will it be better or will it be worse for Canada? Time will tell. It depends on what we do up here. But I have always maintained, and I still maintain, that the United States is our last defense against the globalist, Atlanticist takeover. And if the United States goes down, we all go down. If the United States remains and fights and becomes strong again or great again, MAGA, then we all have a chance And we have to do the right thing. But we have to do it peacefully and orderly. And I believe that we win this. It's not going to happen overnight. But ultimately, in the end, we win this. And one of the sad things I was thinking about earlier this afternoon is that there's still a very large faction of people in this country, all over the world, who have no idea that this war is even being fought. They're just going on with their lives, wondering where their money's going, wondering why it costs $45 for 3 chicken breasts. And they haven't got a clue. So not only are we fighting for ourselves and our children, our families, we are fighting for them too. It may seem like a strain, but when we start to see the tide turn, even just a little bit, in such a major way, as has happened in the past few days, and that's what I'm feeling as well, and I'm sure you guys have felt it too, things are only going to get better from here. This doesn't mean we stop fighting. This means we fight harder. But we win. In the end, we win. For all Access members at shadowdavis.com, I will see you in exactly 2 minutes' time. For those of you who are not members, I will catch you on Monday night, because this is the last show of the week. Monday night at 8 o'clock Central on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, on Telegram, and on Rumble for another Shadow at Night live stream. I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I will see you soon. Shadow Davis All Access members, I will see you in exactly 2 minutes.